Hey, I know I may have some questionable takes on this channel and questionable predictions, but one prediction I got right was the 2024 NBA Finals, as I predicted the Dallas Mavericks would be playing the Boston Celtics. So let's get it. NBA Finals preview and prediction time. In this preview, I'm going to be giving you the matchups that I think should happen, just give a general story, X factors, blah, blah, blah. Bunch of stuff before we get into my actual prediction. But to start, Luka Doncic versus Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving versus Jaylen Brown. We should be in for an absolute treat as NBA fans. For the Celtics game plan, I think their matchup should go about somewhat like this. I'd put Jrue Holiday on Luka and Jaylen Brown on Kyrie. Jaden McDaniels and J-Dub have done the best jobs on him so far this postseason. Now Jaylen Brown fits in the archetype, a longer, taller player that can play defense. So I think he's going to be the best matchup they have. Now I could see a world Derek White or even Jrue Holiday goes on Kyrie Irving, but I ultimately think that Jrue Holiday, the best defender in the NBA when it comes to being a perimeter lockdown defender, should be on Luka Doncic because he's physically capable of it, and he just got that dog in him. I would put him on Luka, and I'd put Jaylen Brown on Kyrie Irving. For the other matchups, I think Tatum should go on PJ Washington, considering the Monday night in Charlotte on League Pass comments earlier this season. Derek White will be on Derek Jones Jr., and obviously the centers will match up. For the Mavericks game plan and matchups, I would put Derek Jones Jr. on Jaylen Brown. And for Tatum, I would put PJ Washington on him, as I do think PJ will take that matchup personal and will truly be locked in. Luka Doncic is going to have to guard someone. He's either going to be guarding Derek White or Jrue Holiday, and I expect whichever one of those players he's guarding, I expect them to come out with aggression right off the gun in game one, because they should, if they haven't learned anything from any of the other teams they've watched, they should target Luka Doncic and see how much he can defend. And the luxury of the Celtics team is that they got 5 players that can actually put the ball through the hoop. It's not like there's a Rudy Gobert or a Jaden McDaniels who struggle creating their shots. I mean, who did Luka Doncic even end up guarding? He was guarding Jaden McDaniels, right? Yeah. I mean, he didn't assert himself. And Derek White and Jrue Holiday are better on-ball shot creators for themselves than anybody Luka's had to deal with. So I find that very interesting. I ultimately do think he'll end up guarding Jrue Holiday because Jrue Holiday's a better post-up guard, and Kyrie Irving should guard Derek White because he's less of a post-up threat. So I put Kyrie on Derek White and Luka on Jrue Holiday. And then obviously, again, the centers are going to match up. I got 3 big X factors for the Celtics and 4 big X factors for the Dallas Mavericks in this series. The first X factor for the Celtics is Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday being a third option and seeing what we've seen from him and towards the end of the Indiana series, him finally taking a step as an offensive playmaker and being much more aggressive toward scoring the ball. If we get that Jrue Holiday, there's not a good chance for the Mavericks to beat the Celtics, because Jrue Holiday is going to be the best defender Luka's seen. He could also be an incredibly dangerous player on offense for the Celtics. So he's my biggest X factor for the Celtics. The Celtics 3-point shooting is also an X factor. If the Mavericks don't have an answer for how to stop them from putting up a lot of threes and making a lot of threes, then the Mavericks will be in trouble. And probably the biggest X factor that isn't a player or 3-point shooting, it's the crunch time performance by the Boston Celtics. We know what we're going to get from Luka and Kyrie in crunch time, but the Celtics have not looked good in crunch time of games. They have done a bunch of BS down the stretch of games, and they really haven't been winning close games. The other team has been losing them. Now, I credit that to the Boston Celtics defense, but again, no Donovan Mitchell for most of the series against the Cavs, no Jimmy Butler in Miami, and Tyrese Halliburton did in fact get hurt. The Pacers beat themselves in most of the Celtics games. It wasn't that the Celtics beat the Pacers, and it was crunch time performance. They just performed a little bit better than the Pacers in crunch time. So that's going to be a big factor. If they need to figure out a consistent way to score outside of the 3-point shooting coming down the stretch of games. Now, Kristaps Porzingis could help that, but We'll talk about Porzingis later. The first X factor I have for the Mavericks is the scoring outside of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I do think the Celtics defense, now you can say what you want about the Timberwolves defense, but I do think Jrue Holiday and Jaylen Brown are better defenders than Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards when it comes down to it. So this series, it will be ever more important for people outside of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to score the basketball. Hopefully Derrick Jones Jr. can go on another Linsanity three-point shooting run. And PJ Washington, I expect him to be locked in this entire series, just like I expected him to be like that in the Thunder series. I think it's going to happen in the Celtics series again, where he's going to just go be on a mission. And I really expect him to have a big series. So I guess you could put PJ Washington as the X factor. The pace of play is going to be a factor for the Mavericks. It's going to be a bigger factor because the Celtics are a run and gun team. If the Mavericks can slow the game down, the Celtics are going to really struggle since that's just not how they like to play basketball. So controlling the pace of play is going to be ever so more important for the Mavericks. And lastly, the biggest thing, I just have to say it because it's been a glaring issue the entire postseason. Free throw shooting for the Dallas Mavericks. It's been abysmal. You got to figure it out. You did better in the Minnesota series, but it's the NBA Finals. You can't afford to be missing free throws and shooting poorly from the line. Kristaps Porzingis, he'll be coming back. We don't know what we're going to get from him. We don't even know if he's going to play. It's looking like he's going to play, but we really don't know until we know. And you do have to factor in the fact he might be gingerly. He might not move well. He probably won't have his legs, if we're being honest, since it was a leg injury, or lower body injury, I should say. So that's a factor for the Celtics, Porzingis' health. For the Mavericks, you look at Luka Doncic. I mean, he's been nursing about 100 injuries this postseason, so hopefully this week off helps him. And then Derek Lively with his head injury, neck sprain. That's also something you got to think about. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to say about injuries. And lastly, before my prediction, we got to talk about the storyline. And the biggest storyline is going to be Kyrie Irving returning to Boston. Kyrie will come out with a vengeance and on a mission to rip the heart out of every Boston fan. Don't be surprised if he averages 30 this series, as he has seemingly tried to prove a point to the people that have been hating on him all postseason. And there's no bigger Kyrie Irving hater than Boston Celtics fans. So watch out for his performance. Now, if Jaylen Brown does the job I think he can do, Kyrie Irving could struggle in the series, but it is Kyrie Irving. He is the most skilled player in NBA history. So I'm not too worried about Kyrie Irving. Porzingis will also be returning to Dallas looking to prove a point. Obviously, he is coming back from injury, though, but he will, without a doubt, be targeted by Luka Doncic, which is something I want to point out now, because likewise to what happened to Rudy Gobert, Luka Doncic likes to pick out targets, and Porzingis is going to be laboring. He's Luka Doncic's ex-teammate. There's just a lot of reasons for him to be the player Luka tries to exploit, but I'd happily let it be Jason Tatum. But yeah, Porzingis is returning to Dallas. Kyrie's returning to Boston. And now, for the prediction. The Dallas Mavericks have been a great road team in the postseason. Boston Celtics have not been. And then you factor in the fact that the Boston Celtics have 4 home games, and you look at it, all right, so they have home court advantage. The Dallas Mavericks are a team that's not going to play around. Boston Celtics have struggled to close games this postseason, and the Mavericks have excelled closing games. So as long as the games are close, they're going to go in the Mavericks' favor down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I think the Mavericks have the best player. I think they have the most experienced player and the best veteran player in Kyrie. Luka Doncic was the best player. Don't think I said otherwise. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown have not proved it on the big stage. Jrue Holiday's their most experienced player, and I have to lean towards the Mavericks simply because I trust Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic more. And they're going to be on the road more in this series, and they seemingly activate takeover more on the road. So I am predicting that the Dallas Mavericks are going to win this series in 6 games. I think the Celtics will take game 1. I think the Mavericks will take games 2 and 3, lose game 4, and then win games 5 and 6 and close it out in Boston. Luka Doncic, your finals MVP. Kyrie Irving averages 30 points. Luka averages close to 33. Maybe. I don't know. But time will tell. Obviously, the Celtics are the better team on paper. The Celtics will probably win this series if they play the level of basketball that we expect from them. But I do not trust them enough to predict them to win the finals and win this series, especially if the Mavericks are healthy. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed. If you want to see my instant reaction to Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, it's on the screen. And if you want to see my reaction to a very questionable Bleacher Report article, click on the video that's not the Western Conference Finals Game 5 instant reaction. Y'all have a good one. Stay safe. Bye.